Hello and welcome. Have you ever wanted to make a gingerbread house, but then thought, or a jacket? Maybe I'll make a gingerbread jacket. Well, this exciting episode is for you.
It's perfect. Perfect, perfect, perfect. Perfect jacket.
Gingerbread is the best. I mean, shortbread is also very awesome, but they make gingerbread in houses. So I'm going to make a jacket that's, inspired by gingerbread. So if you've seen any of my how to make a Chanel style jacket, you'll know that all my jackets have a structural layer. So with this one, because I want the icing like white bit to be like not have a cut line through it, so I'm just going to join the front center piece and the front side piece in my structural layer. I'm just going to sew those together. So I've got the left side and the right side. I'm going to sew them together, and then I'm going to build the structural layer, and then I'm going to pin that onto my outer fabric layer, which is my gingerbread fabric. And we're going to build it that way. And I got a little bit carried away. So I had so I sewed my center front, my side front, and my side back piece all together. And then it was a nightmare to try and cut out the pieces on my patterned bit of brown fabric, my gingerbreadish fabric with the it's sort of a Hessian fabric. So it's basically a tweed made of all brown string, super difficult to cut. And then it's got like white paint on it, or white decoration stuff, and I felt like that would be too itchy if I used that same fabric for the inside front panels, so I just used a gingerbread colored cotton fabric for that. So eventually I cut out all the pieces, and then I pinned them all together, and I machine sewed all the long seams. And then the next step is to hand stitch all the seam allowance down so that it all sits properly. And this could take a while. Roughly edited together all the footage from this section, and I took so much footage. I must have just sewn a seam, taken more footage, sewn another seam, taken another. So anyway, I used the sort of beige colored thread, and it did take a while, and I was careful, but so you can't really see any of my stitching on the outside. So it's good that I took all that time, and this is what it's shaping up to look like. I'm really happy. Like, I just took so long with the placement of these pieces, and unfortunately I only bought 1 yard of fabric. So I was really limited in how I could place all the pieces. But I think it turned out pretty well. The sleeves aren't identical, they're not mirror images of each other, which is a little bit disappointing, and the back is slightly off center, but it's pretty close to being centered, and that's as good as I could get without sort of buying more fabric, going out and buying more fabric. So I'm pretty happy with the way that it's shaping up. So this is the Comme des Garçons one, inspired one that I made 2 months ago. So now I'm just trying to work out how to do the sleeves for this one, because so I'm doing the bottom, and I'm just sort of sewing in the 3 pleats, but I don't want to sew them up too high because I sort of want them to puff out more than they did on the Comme des Garçons one. So so you just sort of machine sew 3 pleats just up far enough so that you can turn the cuff up, but not far enough so that you'll actually see it once the cuff is turned up, if you got what I mean. So here it is. It's sort of sewn into place with invisible stitches from the underside, and everything stays in the right spot. And then once I got everything in the right spot, then I also had to stitch on the inside here. I had to stitch down that hem part, or the facing or inside cuff, whatever you want to call it. So it's really fiddly because this fabric is so stiff. I mean, it's painted as well as being a tough fabric to start with. So yeah, that took me a while, but everything is secure. And then once that was done, then I had to set the sleeves. So what I did here, last week or recently, I just made this Christmas plaid dress, and it's got box sleeves that actually look like a box on the top, and they are my new favorite thing. So I wanted to do the same type of thing with this one here. So I basically just flush filled the whole of the sleeve with most of it, and then all the excess I pinned tightly just around the top, like the shoulder seam. So then I sewed first time round, just doing all the plain bit, and then I folded back the other stuff. And yeah, this is how it ended up. And I mean, obviously all those layers of fabric, it was yeah, I didn't break a single sewing machine. I'm so proud of myself. Then you just finish this seam the usual way. You cut the curves. I didn't trim down, like normally the under bit of seam under your, like on your underarm, you sort of trim that down, but it's kind of impossible with this fabric. It would just have frayed and been too fragile. So I did clip the curves, and then, yeah, folding back the seam was just a Herculean effort. It was just really difficult to do. So I just did it the same way that I do. I'll insert some. This is a jacket I made in the middle of the year for the yellow flower jacket. So this is the base jacket for that. And so it's a layer of really loose weave cotton, black cotton, over 2 layers of structural fabric in green. And yeah, so I've machine sewn the sleeve onto the body of the jacket, and then you just pin the seam allowance up so that you're offering more structural integrity to the sleeve and the shoulder as a whole. And then you just carefully stitch, like I have one hand on the inside and I stitch from the outside. I go right round that once, and then I turn the whole thing inside and I do another layer of stitching from the inside. So it does take a lot of time. But yeah, I always hear people complaining that their jackets are falling apart. I've been making jackets for 13 years. Mine do not fall apart. So it does take time, but I consider it a worthwhile investment. So now I'm sort of going through, the top of the shoulders. They're quite straight, and I'm trying different ways of bending them and sort of mushing the shoulders, so you can sort of have them in a it's really hard to explain, but yeah, because they're so three-dimensional, you can sort of have a pleat at the top. So I'll put the bird's eye view of the shoulder. See, that's sort of like a V in towards the shoulder. You can make it have an eye or a T or a box. So yeah, I was just sort of trying out different formations and seeing what worked. And then when I found what I wanted, then I was like, sort of the shoulder is, because the fabric is so heavy and so rigid, and I've done this really complicated box pleat at the shoulder, you sort of have to, I just felt like it needed more structural integrity. So I just put a patch on it, and so you just sort of, I just cut out bits, like, you know how you see an elbow patch on a professor's tweed jacket? Essentially, I did like a pad for the shoulder, but an internal one inside. So it's not a shoulder pad as such. It's just a pad in the shoulder. And this is what the back looks like. I decided I wanted it sort of to bunch it in. And so I put a box pleat on the back. And I know it's not everyone's cup of tea. Most people would just prefer it to sit like a normal jacket, not cinch it in extra and make it, you know, so three-dimensional. But I think because the sleeves are so extra, that to me, having that, because I'm obviously going to bead this jacket. If you're new to the channel, I make a jacket in one episode, and then I'll do another episode later on where I just add loads and loads of beading to it. So yeah, it sort of looks, that back pleat may look a little out of place at the moment, but once it's weighed down with all its final beading and embellishment, then yeah, hopefully it'll look good. I can always take it out. It's just, again, done with invisible stitching from the inside. And then once I was happy with the way the jacket looked, then it was time to make the lining and sew that in, which is what I've done. And I just use a plain sort of muslin cotton. And yeah, because I like the way the light falls through it, this jacket. So if you sort of stand with the sun behind you, it sort of streams through the jacket a little, and I'm planning on using some glass beads. So yeah, I kind of want to get prism effect of the glass and, you know, shining like from the front and the back. So yeah, it was important to me that I don't have, normally I use a silk lining, but yeah, I felt that having like a really light cotton would do the embellishment justice, like in the eventual. Yeah, and I just love the back of this jacket. There's something very, like, it's got a really historical garment type silhouette. I love it. It's so pretty. But yeah, it's really, really hard to hand sew this, and there was a lot of hand sewing involved just to make all the seams sit properly and make those sleeves sit properly and give the entire garment structural integrity. So yeah, I think I'm going to have to let my fingers rest for a little bit. And yeah, and also the beading always takes forever. So I'll yeah, you'll probably see a few other different types of episodes before I get to the beading one. But yeah, overall, I'm pretty happy with this. As I said, it's only 1 yard of this gingerbread fabric, and I think I did pretty well with it. So thank you for watching, and yeah, I hope your December isn't being too chaotic.